13th at 5:34. I will call the Select Board meeting to order. If you can join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, we didn't. All right, so the first on the agenda is to interview the building commissioner candidates. And first here is Eric, is it Chartrand?
Correct.
Welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So you could tell us a little bit about yourself to get started?
Yeah, sure. I've been a carpenter since I was 15. My father was a carpenter. I learned the trade through him. I did that until 2017. That was my last carpentry job was as a solar foreman, and I got to meet a lot of building inspectors doing that. I met a guy out in Western Mass here, Jeff Clement, and he kind of said, "Hey, yeah, you could do this." Swinging a hammer for 16 years, my shoulder got messed up, and I started to think about, what else can I do with this? The opportunity came up that I could, that Fitchburg was hiring. I live in Fitchburg, and I applied and I got the job. I feel like I was a kid back then. It was 8 years ago, but I didn't think I'd get the job. I mean, I've worked with a lot of good carpenters. Being a building inspector is completely different. Swinging a hammer here, running a saw, it's not something that benefits you at all. You can't. That's not what the skill set is. But fortunately, going to Fitchburg was great. I had 2 other building inspectors and a really good commissioner there, who's a state inspector now. Is still my mentor. I still keep in touch with him. And working in Fitchburg gave me an accelerated my career. Fitchburg's a pretty robust city. They had a lot of stuff going on, and they treated me very well there. The mayor there was great. I had a great experience there, and I only left because the opportunity to become commissioner in Townsend, 10 minutes away, came in. And so I took that opportunity. I was lucky enough to get that. I went there for 3 years, and I had a good career there. It was a little tough. They had a history of financial constraints, but another opportunity arose to go to Westminster. I was able to get that position. Unfortunately, 2 weeks before the end of my 6-month probationary period, I broke my foot. And commissioner with a broken foot, which basically when you're in a small town, you're commissioner and a local, you're doing all the work, you can't inspect. So I don't know exactly what happened, but they let me go. They didn't continue my contract at that point. Unfortunately, that's how that played out. And then after that, I went to Dartmouth. I had a hard time finding work. Surprisingly, which is not surprising, in the wintertime, building permits are slow. So I ended up, and I had a broken foot. So I had to wait about 4 months, and then I ended up going to Dartmouth for a couple months. And Dartmouth was great. It's 2 hours from my house, though. And I had originally applied for the commissioner's position down there, and I didn't get it, but they offered me the local position. And it made sense to take it at the time, but it was a large pay cut compared to the commissioner's position. And with a 2-hour commute each way, it just wasn't sustainable. It was great at first. I mean, I really liked working down there. It's a really nice community. It was really easy. They only had me doing residential inspections. If I lived down there, I would have stayed doing it. It was a little too easy. Not really enough work for me, actually. But that was a great position. I enjoyed working with the commissioner down there, but I ended up leaving that position, and I ended up going to an HVAC company after that for a short period of time. A friend owns, to get their permits back in order, get them straightened out as far as permitting with their company, because they were very much behind. And since then, I've just been waiting to apply and get another job. That job kind of ended, again, kind of in the winter time, and winter time seems to be slow, and communities seem to just not need, whether they have a part-time person, they'll have an alternate or something like that, and it just seems like the spring is where it really starts to come back around. So.
Thank you. Any questions?
Not in direct relation to his comments, but
Yeah.
questions.
Absolutely.
So how do you stay current with your latest building codes and developments in the field?
Yeah, so I'm a member of the Massachusetts Building Group, and I also go to other meetings. And like I said, I keep in close contact with my mentor, who's a state inspector. He seems to be the best source of information right now. The state's changed everything a lot. They're not allowing us to have any training that is not approved by the state, unless it's one of the corporations like Simpson Strong Tie, American Paper Council, something like that, Gypsum, National Gypsum. But yeah, they used to let us do a lot of training, but I guess what the state is moving towards, my understanding is that they want more uniformity. So they've put a halt to mostly everything. I did end up just taking an 8-week course. I think it started in October. I had to get the rest of my credits, so I ended up doing like an 8-week course of onboarding, which is usually what you do when you're a commissioner to get your commissioner's position. I didn't do it because I went with the ICC. Everybody onboarding wasn't available at the time, and that was the only training that they've approved since they've made those changes. So, but I try to stay current. Yeah, I keep my finger on the pulse, keep in touch with a lot of guys I know. It's a small community, and just pay attention to the news, read up on all of the new bylaws. Accessible dwelling units have been, you know, and there's been some interesting changes with the energy code, which that is changing rapidly. They seem to have made some rules, and then they seem to change them a little bit as they find they're not working so well. But you do the best you can, and you just try to stay current. And the new 10th editions came out, but it was rushed, it's my understanding, and it's still in the current period. No one's really using it yet. I wouldn't imagine. I mean, I guess you could opt to want to have stricter codes. If you were a builder, I don't imagine most want to do that yet. They usually wait till the last minute for that.
So are you current on all the licensing?
Yeah.
For this position?
Yes. Yeah, in fact, that onboarding was the end of the last 3-year cycle where you have to have your 45 hours or you can't renew. And a lot of guys actually did lose their license because there was no training. So I got lucky enough to get that training in, and I worked with a guy named Ross CV at the state, and he got me approved. I actually was a little sweat in that one because I knew I had done the training, but the state's really big. So one hand doesn't really know what the other hand is doing, but yeah, I'm current.
And the commute here from Fitchburg, is that like an hour?
An hour. Yeah, it's about an hour. Too bad. My brother lives in Athol. He lives in Orange, so it wasn't too bad. I'm familiar with 202, and I looked at it before I came out here today with the weather and everything. It really wasn't that bad. So.
And if you were to get this position, how early can you start?
I mean, soon, very soon. I'm enrolled right now at community college, Mount Wachusett Gardner, and I'm taking fire science. But and I have an EMT class at 5, but that's going to end in May. It starts at 5 on Monday and Wednesday, and it goes till 10. That's the only in-person class you have to take for fire science, so it shouldn't conflict with anything once I get through that little bit. But yeah, I can start fairly soon. You know, I'm happy to get back to work. I like to work.
I guess where do you see yourself here in 5 years? And I ask that question because it seems just from talking to people that seem to building commissioners seem to bounce around from one area to another area. So I guess that's a concern.
I think it's the nature of the beast. I mean, unfortunately, it's the pay. A lot of guys move around for pay, and they just keep trying to chip away. So I mean, with the offering that you guys are offering, I see myself staying here for a while. It's very competitive. But yeah, I mean, I see myself still being a building inspector. I plan on getting my EMT certification, doing that maybe on the side on the weekends, and continuing my education. The fire science degree parlays really well with what we do already. We work with fire all the time. Building construction types. I looked at the courses before I took them, and I said, it's not going to hurt me to to be better, to know you guys better, because it's like two sides of the coin. You know, we do the buildings and they have to respond. So, and you got to work closely with these guys. It's just the way it is, and obviously what they're doing, it's life-threatening and it's life-saving. So, I mean, you know, my thing is we can't put these guys in any worse position they're already in. Building's already on fire. It's already raining out. It's already covered in ice. You know, we can't put them in any worse position. And it's great to work with fire. I like working with the fire guys. I've learned a lot over the years, and I have a lot of friends from all the different communities.
How would you say if we were doing an inspection and the builder did not agree with you?
Surprise.
How would you deal with that?
Well, we trying to find a common ground. I mean, with the code, it can be tough. There's definitely an appeals period. Usually, it's easier to solve it in the field, come up with some kind of solution, figure out what we can do without going to the appeal. Appeal really takes so long. Nobody wants to do it. You know, I have definitely had to take contractors to the board or building owners to the board that didn't want that, caused unsafe situations and didn't really want to address them. That's a tough one. I mean, when it's unsafe, we're going to have a problem. You know, that's not going to be too easy to fix if you're going to be resistant to wanting to address it. I tend to try not to stand on my island by myself. Hopefully fire will come in with me and give me a little backup there, because if it's unsafe, it's unsafe. But yeah, I mean, it's going to happen sometimes. I mean, I find that we can usually solve it in the field though, especially if the contractors are recurring. If there's a lot of local guys, you just got to get the flavor for what they're doing. And once you figure out what they're doing, what they're trying to do, they're not reinventing the wheels. They're building decks, they're building garages, they're building houses. We do it all the time. No one's ever come into the office and said, I want to build a nuclear reactor. You know what I mean? So I kind of tend to think that, you know, these guys are just guys that are trying to feed their families. We can figure it out. I mean, they're small code things usually. Most of the stuff that gets you hung up is zoning. You know, the zoning is really where the rubber hits the road, where the town doesn't allow it. You know, so we can try to find some kind of commonality in there, see if there's some kind of way that can work, or you're probably going to go up town meeting, get the code changed, you know, get the bylaw changed. That's usually the avenue that works the most. Or I've had, when I was in towns, that I had a couple people who wanted to do some strange things. I try not to think of them as strange as much anymore. Investors are creative. That's why I'm not one of them, you know. And I tend not to look at their ideas like that, because I've seen things that I thought would not fly at all, and I've seen things that I thought were slam dunks get shut down. So it's kind of tough to know that. The code stays the same as far as the building code. The bylaws change, but what I find when you're moving from community to community is what the community wants. That's what changes from community to community. Whether it's really pro-build, whether it's really pro-agriculture, like Townsend was, whether it's really pro-business. Those are the things that change, and you just have to figure out what the town wants and what they're agreeable to. But ultimately, you can go to ZBA, you can get variances, you can get special permits. You usually you can pursue those avenues. Work with them on that, and hopefully we can get the thing done. Sometimes some things just don't work for the community. A lot of times the bylaws are old. Where somebody wants to do, I had a situation in Townsend where somebody wanted to do dog grooming, where we allowed a barber shop in a residential home, and we allowed a kennel, but dog grooming, no. Kind of splitting the hairs there, and they ended up having to go to the town meeting. They ended up approving it for a special permit for a kennel and changing the bylaw to include that, because I'm like, if you cut hair for people, why can't you cut hair for dogs? If you babysit the dogs, why can't you? It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but you're not allowed to interpolate like that. I thought it was pretty basic, and it seemed like a reasonable request. It was a really small dog grooming outfit. I mean, it was tiny. It was like a closet. It was like one dog at a time. I'm like, this is not the end of the world. We can figure this out. And thankfully, they were able to get it done.
So you had mentioned the zoning, obviously. How familiar are you with local zoning?
I was on the ZBA in Fitchburg. When I started in Fitchburg, Mark Barbadero, the commissioner there, he had me doing zoning from day one. which as a local inspector isn't exactly popular. The other two inspectors I worked with didn't want to do it. They felt like it was his job. But I was new, and they had started under a different commissioner, so they had already kind of been groomed a certain way. And since I was green, he kind of grew me in a different way. So he taught me a lot about zoning right away. His brother is a Supreme Court Justice in New Hampshire. He's a pretty sharp guy. But I did a lot of zoning there, and then of course, Townsend and Westminster, you are the zoning enforcement officer. And I was the alternate for Lunenburg too for a time when they lost their commissioner, and I had to do all the zoning there. And then I volunteered to go to Fitchburg ZBA, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. I just ended up having, it was just too much work, so I ended up stepping down. But yeah, zoning is it's part of the job. You got to be familiar with it. You got to know what you're doing. It can be tough sometimes. Like I said, I find that sometimes the bylaws are just old, and then sometimes not written well. You know, and to have a community redo their whole zoning bylaw, one big dump, it's expensive. So it's usually not how it works. Not my experience yet, at least.
Thank you.
Yeah, to add to that, being on the ZBA it taught me a lot more. Being on the other side of the table is like the difference between going to a bar for a drink and being a bouncer. So doing that, I actually did open my eyes to a completely different way of looking at things. The ZBA looks at things differently.
Your, what do you consider mentor, who's a state building inspector now?
Yeah.
If we contacted him, what would he say about you?
Oh, go ahead. Come on, feel free. You know, like I said, I talk to him all the time. You know, he's a great guy. I'm happy I was able to meet him, and we've maintained a friendship ever since. So yeah, he's a big fan. I hope he'd say that. I usually use him as a reference on the applications. But yeah, Mark's a great guy, and like I said, he's with the state now, so he has the inside track to what they're actually doing up there. And they're really short-handed, and they don't pay that well, so it's tough. You know, I think actually Zone 1, which is this zone, they don't even have anybody right now. But yeah, you know, going to the state, he's learned a lot of new stuff too, about how it operates on the other side of the table, but he was sharp from day one. I mean, I've always consulted him when I had to bounce an idea off somebody to say, do you think this is making sense to you? Or, you know, and going to the group meetings is the same way. It's to bounce the ideas off people to say, hey, how do you guys handle this stuff? What's going on with you? Those meetings are great, so I'm hoping that the state resumes them. It's nice to know what Belchertown's doing. It's nice to know if they have somebody who's maybe causing a mess and wants to maybe come here. Maybe they have maybe somebody opened an illegal junkyard and they're going to tow all the cars here. Well, we kind of would want to know that. You know what I mean? It's networking works well.
But again, if we call Mark, and I said, well,
Go ahead.
Can you tell me some things about Eric?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sure he'll tell you that I'm the type of person that needs to know how to make sausage, is what he said to me one day.
But if I ask him, what is Eric's top 5 things that what would he say to me?
I don't know for sure what he'd say for you. You know I have strong skills with the code. I have strong skills with zoning. I have good soft skills with people. He had really good soft skills. When I first started there, he put me on the desk in the front. So I had to deal with the public from day one. There's actually a book that you gotta read when you become a commissioner that tells you not to do that. And I joked with him about that, and I said, this soft skills book tells me don't put the new guy on the counter first day. He's like, sink or swim. You seem to have done fine, you know. But the soft skills are definitely something that I developed while working there. I mean, sometimes people are really upset, you know, that a lot of this stuff is really important to them, and you got to diffuse them. You know, you got to calm them down. You can't talk to everybody the same way. You got to learn how to talk to people to get what you need out of them, which is, at the end of the day, I'm trying to get compliance. You know, it's compliance. Sometimes that compliance is not. Sometimes I always tell people when they come in and they complain about somebody, I said, they're always like, nice to meet you, thank you. Well, I tell them it's a pendulum, because by the time it goes like this and then it comes back down, it really kind of ends in the middle. And it's not, sometimes people are looking for more than just a compliance. They must be frustrated. They might want punishment. That's not really how it works. So I always tell them, well, don't thank me. I'm just doing my job. And if I can help you, I'll help you. That's the best I can do. Sometimes I can't help you, but whenever I can help somebody, I will help you to the best of my ability, help you with the code, help you figure it out, paperwork, whatever else we got to do. If there's online permitting problems, if there is online permitting at all, you know, I'll help you as best I can. That's all I can do for you, you know. But some things I can't do, which is I can't obviously look the other way. That's not something we do.
I do have one last question.
Go ahead.
So, your interest in coming to work in Granby, what do you know about Granby?
I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you. I looked up a little bit before I came. I see it's a community of about 6,600. That's very similar to Townsend. Coming through, I noticed there's a lot of agriculture. Looks like a lot of farms. I'm good with that stuff. I did a lot of that in Townsend. Townsend is a community that had a lot of farming. It's traditionally had chicken farms. We actually had to do a slaughterhouse out there. That was pretty controversial. You know, there was one farmer who owns a turkey farm, and he needed to build a slaughterhouse because the slaughterhouse that he was using closed. And I particularly thought that that was allowed on his own property because it's agricultural use. But slaughterhouses are rather controversial, and I guess you could say that they aren't. They seem to be thinking that that's an industrial process. I tend to read that particular version of the law to say that, you know, cultivating, processing, and bringing to market is agriculture. I don't see how you can process a turkey without having it slaughtered. That, and a lot of times they can do slaughterhouses on mobile. They can do them on an 18-wheeler truck. It was really controversial. I think the reason being is that people thought it was going to be kind of barbaric. No, this is state of the art. The USDA is there whenever they operate, and they only operate 1 week out of the year. I mean, the thing was a real big concern until it was done, and then no one ever mentioned it ever again because it was the quietest building in town. And it was located on a poultry farm that had been there since the dawn of time. So, I mean, yeah, I see that, you know, it looks to me that, you know, obviously the commercial district isn't that big or isn't that developed. So, you know, I don't know too much about the town, but it seems a lot similar to some of the places I've worked and some of my experience.
So the, sorry,
Go ahead,
the slaughterhouse you spoke of, so while that was happening, you believed it was being zoned properly?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I went back and forth. I read that law about 1,000 times, and I always kept coming up with the same answer. I'm like, it seems to be that, you know, like I said, processing. How do you process how do you bring to market?
And that ended up being the outcome that it was allowed?
They ended up approving it, yeah. No one really, I mean, we went to many meetings about that, and I have to admit that there was, it was sad because that particular person, you know, at one of the select board meetings said, if anyone has any questions, let's do this right now. And then no questions. And the next day I got a phone call. And I was like, Gary was there last night. Why didn't you ask him? He was there. He answered all the questions. He let everyone tour. He went, you know, he's been very transparent. I just didn't see it. And like I said, the things are super clean. It was super state of the art. USDA is there on site, and it's really not that bad. But I think people sometimes fear what they don't know.
We have a lot of residential buildings that go up in town rather than any commercial buildings.
Sure.
Pretty much what we have for commercial buildings is what we have. It's rare that something new goes up. Can you walk us through the steps of the residential process of inspection from start to finish?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, me personally, I do an inspection at the footing. I don't do excavation. I think it's just, I'm going to see it when I see the footing. Mm-hmm. You know, once we get it permitted, you know, whether, you know, it's a buildable lot. Like, let's start there. Is it a buildable lot or subdivision? Because, you know, subdivision is going to be ZBA or planning board, and that's going to be a little bit more of a process before you can get started. There's going to be probably some more rules on what the town requires for roads, utilities, et cetera, et cetera. Regular buildable lot is pretty straightforward. Regular buildable lot, we need, you know, come in with a permit, come in with plans, You do need a HERS rater unless you're not a stretch community, but I find that that working with the HERS rater saves you money. They're going to head off any kind of, problems that you have where you're not meeting the code. And, you got to have septic design, and that goes through Board of Health. You're going to have to get that stuff done and well. Or if there's public utilities, then great, but it doesn't, it's not the case. When I was in Fitchburg, I did all sewer and water almost. When I was in Townsend, no. It was all septic design, and I worked with a great Board of Health agent there that was really good. And then conservation, if it's conservation. There might be some conservation issues. But I mean, that, again, goes back to, is it a buildable lot? I can permit the house, but if it's a stream right there, if you proceed, you are violating the Wetlands Act. So that's not my enforcement, but obviously you don't want to let a resident or a builder shoot off their own foot, so to speak. So you want to head that stuff off. But yeah, I do a footing inspection, and I do a foundation inspection once the waterproofing is up. I do a frame inspection after that. Sometimes I do a truss inspection. If it's a really big house and it has a complicated truss system, I'll do a truss inspection because I found problems. I had a kid who had one out, trusses out 3 inches on one project. Turns out it wasn't that bad. He was able to fix it, but it was really confusing when you're looking at him going, is that crooked? How did you do that? But I do that, and I don't do a sheathing, and then it's insulation. Insulation now consists of just seeing it, because you have to have a HERS rater, and they are using modeling to make sure that you're meeting the code. So I just make sure it's installed where it needs to be installed, but as far as thicknesses and stuff like that, nowadays you don't have to do that, because you're allowed to add more here and take away a little bit there. If you want to have the stained glass window up there, that's fine. It doesn't meet the code at all. We'll just beef up your other windows. So that's what I find that the guys are doing to meet the energy code. Is it seems like they're beefing up the windows to make up for some of the shortcomings. And then after that, it's really just the final.
Okay.
We do the final walkthrough and get them going.
Great. Thank you.
What's that?
I think I'm all set. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
No problem. Have a great night.
You too.
Anything you want to discuss? You want to take a brief recess until,
Oh, he's here.
oh,
Yeah.
just like that?
Yep, just
Oh,
like
he's on
that.
the back there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hello, folks, how are you?
Good, how are you? You can come right up here.
I'm Kyle Scott.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you.
All right, Kyle, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
I live in the town of Hatfield. I've worked in the various towns, Northampton, Williamsburg, Haydenville, town of Deerfield, Southwick currently, Southwick and Hatfield. I'm the commissioner. And background was engineering, University of Massachusetts, and then Washington State. From there, I went to work for Bechtel, somewhat in the United States, but mostly through Southeast Asia, and did procurement on different supplies for construction and various projects that they had going on, traveling around Asia. And eventually, I was running part of their Southeast Asian operations for their engineering. For civil engineering. And then from that, came back to the States. I was a home builder, also did modular homes and steel construction, commercial, residential. Built a few banks in the area, up in Greenfield area. I built a couple locally. Various projects around, and worked along the Gulf Coast also. During Katrina, I was working for Champion Homes, running projects, doing demolition and restarting housing projects along Route 1 in Biloxi, Mississippi, New Orleans area. So from that, kind of wanted to stay home more instead of always on the move. I had one son that lived with me, so went into inspections and started some small towns and then ended up in Northampton and so forth.
Thank you. So your current position is with Town of Hatfield?
Town of Hatfield and Town of Southwick.
Okay.
Southwick's got a population of about 10,000, skirts 11, and Hatfield, I think, is right on the edge of probably 4,000, I would say. Hatfield, I do early mornings, later afternoons when I come home, fit it in various times. I'll go out on the weekend. They also have a lot of commercial. For being a small town, it's kind of surprising. They've got quite a bit of commercial. And Southwick, on average, has about 25 residential homes going. I've been there, it's going to be 5 years, I believe, maybe next month. And on average, 25 to 30 new homes going at any one time. Large ones, fairly large. They keep creating new lots is the thing, so busting up farmland and so forth. I have a 100-unit condo project going there now. Russ Anderson, who referred me to this job, actually, I didn't even think about it. I had seen the posting way back. I assumed it was filled. He came in my office one day. I guess he's your acting fire chief now. And Russ said, "Hey, are you interested in something a little closer to home?" And I said, "Yeah." He says, "What is it?" And he says, "Granby." So then I looked into it and I contacted Town Hall and got the application.
Yes. Do you know much about Granby?
Not a lot.
Okay.
I've been researching since. I read your zoning bylaws through. They seem kind of in line with a lot of the towns of this size.
So Kyle, if you had the opportunity to have this position, would you continue with the Town of Hatfield and Town of Southwick as their building commissioner?
I would leave Southwick, of course,
Southwick?
yeah.
Okay.
Hatfield I would keep it if there's no issue with you folks. It's very simple for me to do it. I'm a very early riser. I mean, by early, I'm talking 4:30. 5 o'clock. I go in, I meet a lady who does their accounting there every morning, Brenda. We chit chat, I do my stuff. They have online permitting.
Okay.
So Hatfield's more of a part-time thing.
Yeah, oh yeah, and I can do it standing on my head. It's like, but it's nice to be there, you know?
You don't have any problem, if you were here full-time and they're part-time, you would be able to?
Yeah, I've never had an issue.
Okay.
I've only once had, I had one occasion on a weekend, I was going through the gate at the Big E, this is years ago, and this is when I was doing the town of Deerfield too. And I got a call for a fire in Deerfield, fire in Hatfield, same time. What are the odds of that, you know? And, but I handled it. I just went to one thing, kept going back and forth, but that's when doing 3 or 4 towns, it's not good. So the one small town, one, you know, like this town, it would work well, I think. There wouldn't be an issue.
Okay. So why do you think you'd be a good fit for us?
This is kind of my niche, actually. Your town sounds like Hatfield. And I did well up in Williamsburg when I was there. I did shared when I was in Northampton. Northampton does Williamsburg, and we would often do Williamsburg in the morning and then in the afternoon. Same thing what I do with Hatfield. And this town seems like, I don't know, just from looking around, you've got residential, probably very light on the commercial, I'm thinking, and farmland, I would think. You must have.
Sums it up, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if expanding your commercial base is something you're interested in, but in Hatfield, that is something they're interested in, so I kind of work that end of it. And I've just recently got a new 40-bedroom hotel in Hatfield and 170,000 manufacturing facility building up there. So I kind of market the town a little bit too. And working with the planning board, I have a nice planning board up there. So this is kind of like my niche. And it would just be, I like the easier commute, truthfully. That driving Mass Pike every day and the 80 miles, 100 miles an hour on icy days doesn't do it for you some days, you know. So, I mean, I'm happy where I am. They're very nice people, nice folks. The town administrators at Peach, they're all very nice. But it would be nice to work in another smaller town.
If you were to get this position, Kyle, how early could you start? Or how soon?
How soon could I be free?
Yeah,
I would imagine a couple weeks.
at least 2 weeks.
I don't know what your needs are. I could certainly fill in between if you needed. I
Okay.
mean, I could do sooner than 2 weeks, like if you had inspections. Congratulations to Damien, I heard he got the state. So, I mean, if you wanted me to pick up until, I'd give my responsible notice in Southwick, and then if you wanted me to pick away down here and, you know, pick up Damien's inspections and so forth, I can certainly do that. That's no problem. I'm used to working a lot, so. I've had 4 jobs my entire life, 30 years or more of working.
Well, I guess, Kyle, with that said, you know, where do you see yourself in 5 years? You know, we've noticed over the years, and just roughly from us and other areas, we've seen that the you know, building commissioners seem to kind of go town to town, and where would you see yourself in 5
To tell you the truth, sir, if you were good to me and you liked my work, I would stay put. I wouldn't leave Southwick now, except that if this is closer, you know, and I'd try to get them on their feet. I think I've done a lot of positive things in Southwick. They were bleeding red when I started there. Their building department was losing money. I mean, I looked at the fees, and they do a lot of permits. And permits that should be $400 range were $25. And I said, how can you run your department on these fees? Oh, what should they be? You know, and I took a look at them. I got them all adjusted. I got the new online system built out, which the upgraded system is going online this coming week. And I would stay put probably until I'm all done with it, I would think. Hopefully you would be happy with me.
Okay.
So I could give you a good number of years, yeah. I look old, but I'm not that old.
We want your best years.
Yeah, well, you know, I'll tell you, that's the other thing. I mean, I just don't enjoy that drive anymore, you know, but yeah, it's worked, you know, and I'd continue to do it if that's the way it is, but I think if you called the administrator, any of those selectmen, there's not one person, and I think Anderson probably enforced that. I don't think there's one person that's been unhappy with how that department's been run, so.
The only reason that you're looking to leave is just based on
It's
travel.
shorter commute. Tell you the truth, I heard you pay a little more on health insurance, and that's a plus, but they pay 50%, so.
Are you familiar, how familiar are you with historical buildings?
I've written books on history, actually, sir. So if you're familiar with the Arcadia series of books, they're picture books mostly on that go back in time through different areas. I did 2 on the town of Montague, town of Deerfield, and you can Google them. They're on Barnes & Noble. Historic preservation, I'm very knowledgeable about. I think I'm probably still a member of the Mass Historic Association. I'm a life member of the Hatfield Historical Society.
Okay.
I had belonged to Greenfield and other towns too. We have some historic register places in Hatfield. Do you have anything on the register down here? Or?
A few.
Yeah.
There's a few. One thing that I caught my interest is trying to develop a little bit of commercial properties.
Right.
We have a hard time in town here, mostly because of water and sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Because it doesn't.
Infrastructure is a big thing.
Right, so how might you help that to develop? If it's in place now to a certain point, how could you possibly
Well,
help to
engineering,
bring that forward with
the
us?
engineering background would help there somewhat. I have a lot of experience citing commercial projects and trying to find solutions. Are you limited on sewer, or do you have very limited?
Pretty much.
Yeah. Any thoughts of expansion through grants or anything?
That's why I'm kind of asking the question.
I helped, Hatfield recently obtained a $3 million grant to extend along Route 5 a sewer line, which is a lot of our commercial development. And I actually helped push that through. And if you call Diana Zinel, one of my references from the town of Hatfield, I worked on that for years, trying to get that grant through. So infrastructure, particularly where, I don't know, is it heavy wetlands or environmental issues in this community, or?
Most of it would be along Route 202, so there are some, but
You can work around?
Workable, yeah.
Yep. So we, along that section, I dealt with a engineer who worked for, it was Doctors Without Borders, and she had actually built hospitals and did economic development in poor countries. And her and I were talking about draining wetlands, and farmers' ditches were very common years ago, and they created a lot of these wetlands. So you can create another ditch and drain the wetlands too, which people don't really realize. And then after a short period of time, the wetlands become more buildable and sustainable for development. Okay. So there's a lot of different things we could look at.
So you have a nice background on that.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And all of your certifications are up to date?
Yes. There's one letter in my package. I apologize for some of the old references, but there's one letter from Hampshire 5 College, Neil. He was the president at the time, and I helped push through the textbook annex into Hatfield through using the Dover Amendment.
He speaks very highly of you.
Yeah, Hadley kind of rejected it, I believe, so. And I worked with him quite a while on that. And when I was in Northampton, I had good ties with Smith College, and that I did all the university inspections.
Do you have any more questions?
I think I'm all set.
I'm good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. I hope
Thank you,
you
appreciate it.
hope you select me. Nice to thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity. And in any case,
Thank you for being here.
Bye-bye.
Right. Have a good night.
So we do have, Glenn, your comment from earlier, we do have 12 minutes before our next one comes in, and I don't think he's here yet.
Okay.
So we can either, if you need a break, we can take a break, or we can continue on.
Well, do you have any other thing on our,
We have 2 more things on the agenda.
sure, we have time, why not?
All right, so until our next appointment comes in, on the agenda, we have a discussion about the town administrator position. So the select board has voted to notify the applicant that the board has decided not to continue negotiations with the town administrator, and we will proceed with recruitment and selection process moving forward. So, do we have to do a vote on
I think
an
you
open
should-
meeting?
you Still need to vote, yes.
Okay.
So I will make a motion to not continue with the administrator that we offered the position to, and retract that offer.
And proceed with recruitment and selection.
I'm sorry, and proceed to find recruitment and selection of a new one, yeah.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No, I think it's,
Discussion.
so people understand, we could have reached an agreement in regards to the contract.
Yep, thank you. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So since we are going to proceed with recruitment and selection, the committee that met for the town administrators, and they gave us 5. We do have one that was part of the selection process.
Yes, they had picked 6 to interview, and
5 came to us, right?
4 came
Okay.
to you. Some wanted to go with 5, and then from what I'm understanding, someone else said they would let them go to 6, so they ended up just doing the 4. And,
Okay.
I was told the 5th one I reached out to see if that person was still interested, and they are.
Okay. I would
So-
definitely interview that person then.
So with that said, I am on vacation next week, but if you two would like to interview, and I can watch the video, and I'll give any questions that I have that I want Kathy to ask. It's totally up to you guys, or we can wait the week we come back. I'm just thinking the week we come back, Kathy's on vacation. We already have our regular select board meeting on Monday, and we have the public hearing for the gravel pit on Thursday. So we already have 2 meetings that week, so if you two would like to interview the candidate, that would be great next week, but I understand if, either way.
Yeah, I think that's fine, Crystal. I think it's a time-sensitive
Yes.
matter here, and the importance of having a town administrator, and I know in the near future, our current town administrator, I would say, acting person will be retiring as well, so I think that's important. And as you said, you can provide us with questions, and if you feel after you watch the video, if you will, you need to have a follow-up, with the individual, we could do that as well.
Okay.
I agree.
That person is available on Wednesday or Thursday, which so it would be the 19th or 20th. Is one better than the other for you two?
I'd rather do Thursday if possible.
Is that okay? And does that work for you?
Does that work for you, David?
Let me just check my calendar real quick, please.
I know, good for you for knowing your schedule right off the top of your head. I was gonna.
Thursday, the 20th, you said? Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, what time would you like to do that?
Do you want to do it earlier, David? So we
If
can
you
get done?
can
Yeah.
make it earlier, that's fine. If it
You want
works
to do
for
it
her.
for 4:30?
Sure.
4:30?
And then
4:30?
alternate time, just at least that's.
Then after 4:30.
Okay.
Same thing, after
I'll
that.
start
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Great.
All right, and next on the agenda is to sign the contract for Pioneer Valley Planning Commission with the TOG. Town of Granby. Oh, I was like TOG.
What's TOG?
Town of Granby. I was thinking the same thing. I'm like, what TOG? What's TOG? Oh, thank you. I thought it was in the folder.
Oh, no, this is,
Okay.
sorry.
All right, so we did discuss this with Eric Weiss the last time, and he
Excuse me.
agreed to all the changes that our Labor Council has made. So actually, I will give this to you, Dave. Did anyone have any questions about the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission contract afterwards?
No, I did not.
Let me, I would ask too, what's the, it expires when? Early March, right? March.
It says March 5th, I believe.
March 5th?
I did speak to Ira, and he's, I sent him, he's away
Yeah.
at the moment, but he gave me all this information that I had, and he said to reach out to him. And I did send him the, all the budget stuff, because I felt that that was the most important thing for him to be looking at right now.
Okay.
So he has that. I sent him an email, but he'll be here the 19th and 20th, and they'll be off on the 21st, but then I'm gone.
So what is the contract
So-
for that? That's
I think it's the 28th that it goes to.
of March 20th?
Is it the
Yeah.
28th?
It says through March 28th.
Through March
Oh,
28th.
Okay, then that's fine, okay.
I think that was because they were anticipating starting the first week of February, but we didn't have our meeting yet.
Right, that's
So-
good on that. Okay, I just want to make sure that there's some time there.
So planning services through March 28th, 2025.
Which could be extended depending on, because we also have a limitation on the budget too.
Right.
So once it gets to a certain amount,
And if you needed a mentor.
a mentor for the
Right.
TA coming in, depending on the experience.
Okay.
I will make a motion to enter into agreement with the Pioneer Valley Planning Commission to offer us services for the temporary town administrator.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think it's just you, Crystal.
So then a motion to give me permission to sign it on.
So I will also make a motion to give our board, our chair, Crystal Dufresne, permission to sign this contract because it only has one signature slot on it.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, it's all chair. Okay, there you go.
All right. And Robert, was that?
Here, Wojciech.
Wojciech, thank you. You can come up to the chair, sir, please. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, board. My name's Robert Wojciech, but please just call me Rob.
Okay, you got it. All right, so welcome to the town of Granby. And if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you know, well, you may not know, I'm 52 years old. I live in Belchertown. I've got a strong construction background and have a strong construction knowledge and knowledge of working with people of all walks of life. My current position is building inspector in Chicopee, and my parents immigrated from Poland, so I was first generation, born and raised in South Hadley. Didn't learn to speak English till I was 5. Went to Mater de la Rosa in Holyoke, graduated, went to Stick, Western New England, went into the military, into the National Guard. Decided to start following my father's footsteps and doing construction. And I have a twin brother who's a master plumber, so we kind of cornered the market with construction and flips and everything else like that, and learned it could be pretty lucrative. So I did that for about 15 years until I needed a hip replacement and knee replacement, and age caught up with me, and decided to start looking for a job like project manager or construction supervisor, stuff like that, something that's a lot less wear and tear on your body. So that's how I got to where I'm at today. Just kind of bounced around until I found my niche, so to speak. So with my current position in Chicopee, it's a gateway community. I've been there for almost 3 years. I've passed all the tests I needed to pass to get my license as an inspector. I've taken one of the commissioner's tests and passed the first one. It's called onboarding. So if I would be appointed as a provisional commissioner, I believe Damien would probably know, but I think I'd have to get that within 6 months or within a year to pass those 2 tests to get the commissioner certificate, but I could work as a commissioner. I would just have to have the appointing authority sign the paperwork and send it into the BBRS. The background I bring, working in a city like Chicopee with 77,000 people, since it's a gateway community, there's people from all walks of life that come through Chicopee, from Europe, from South America, what have you, and there's four of us inspectors there, and I'm probably one of the more communicative ones just because of my background. I try to explain the process to people because I've been in their shoes when I first started. When I was a 21-year-old kid, I'm like, who needs a permit? We're doing sheetrock, you know? And then you're like, okay, as you rise up through the ranks, and you're like, well, wait a second, there needs to be some accountability. This person sells the house and there's a fire and we need to track this. There needs to be some record keeping. So part of working in Chicopee is open up my eyes to all walks of life and communicating effectively with people instead of being like, you know, abrasive or necessarily denying their permit. You have to teach them and explain the process to them and, you know, educate them. So I think that's who I am as a person. You know what I mean? I'm more of a relaxed person than being like a shoot from the hip, no kind of guy. You know what I mean? I'll give you a little bit of leeway and let's work through this. So, sorry if I rambled there.
Thank you. Well, you answered my question about the certifications. I guess one of my questions is why Granby?
Well, that's a good question, especially from you. Like I said, I was born and raised in South Hadley. I live in Belchertown, but I walk my little French bulldog Zola in Dufresne's Park all the time. I support all the local businesses in town, and I always go to charter days. Sorry about last year, but I think Granby would be a good fit for me because it's my kind of town. It's a small town atmosphere, but it's got the growing capabilities, and you'd like to see it grow in the right direction. And I know a lot of people. I have family here. I have a lot of friends in town, and like I said, I think it'd be a natural fit.
I guess my question would be, Rob, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I ask that because, I mean, I've been on the select board now almost 8 years. I think we're on our 4th or 5th building commissioner.
Understood.
So it seems that people move around a lot. So my always concern is that, you know, how long is this person going to be here for?
So without signing a letter of intent or anything, I can tell you my appearance here tonight is sincere, meaning that this town is about 8 miles closer than Chicopee, so it's a lot closer to my home, a lot closer to my mom's house, who's still alive. And I think that if I were to tell you I want to work till 62, I'm 52 now, that's 10 years, not 5. And depending upon what the town of Granby has to offer for a retirement system, vestment opportunities, the amount of time before you can draw retirement, stuff like that. Certainly we can discuss that further,
What is your background with commercial as opposed to residential?
So my specialty is residential, and in Chicopee, I'm the residential guy, but I do handle a lot of commercial permits. I do SPRAC reviews, go to zoning, planning. There's not very much Conservation Commission issues, but when I decided to take the tool belt off and try to get into an office setting, I worked as a project manager for Mount Holyoke Properties, which has a lot of rental properties. Those are considered commercial, even though they're apartments. Then I moved on to Enfield Enterprises in Springfield, and they're a federal government agency. So we chased federal government money, and we had jobs with Amtrak here in Springfield. We built the ramp, and I was the project manager on that. I got my clearance badge and Amtrak certifications and everything. I needed to get that, just to get that. And then when Puerto Rico had the hurricane back in 2019 or whenever it was, we were tasked, or we were awarded the bid to go down there and tarp all the homes that were damaged. So that was a unique experience for me, and just trying to communicate effectively with people down there. But we brought a contingency with us, was a challenge, but ordering things and getting all the supplies we needed. So again, that was a catastrophe where you're working under pressure and you're trying to get all the supplies you need and everything else. So that was a semi-commercial atmosphere. And then I started working for NL Construction. We had a large project in Holyoke called Library Commons, and we took this building across from the library. It was an old 1880s building, and basically built it from ground up, concrete, foundations, framing, everything. And when you get a set of drawings and they're this thick, and you're sitting in the trailer and you have to be on top of every little detail, and it's very, because if you miss something, the engineers are coming and they're gonna gig you for it or whatever. So that opened my eyes to the world of commercial construction. And then as I evolved into becoming a building inspector in Chicopee and seeing all the sets of the amount of commercial plans that come into the city of Chicopee, it really opened my eyes to the need for the fire department to review plans, safety, egress, all that stuff, and make sure it's correct, and to make sure you have all the accountability from the paperwork with the construction control documents.
Very good. Thank you.
In your current position, Rob, what do you think has been your biggest challenge?
Let's see, my biggest challenge? I would say the biggest challenge is trying to coordinate all our efforts together to make the city better. The building we're in now, it's not in the same building as the fire department, so trying to schedule like certificate of inspection or zoning inspections together, there's a lot of phone calls, a lot of redundancy, a lot of emails. Our computer system is okay, it's not the best, so there's a lot of miscommunication that goes on. And when we book appointments, they're in half-hour time slots. So you book an appointment and you're there, the fire department isn't, or the customers, the owner isn't there. So there's a lot of kind of wasted time, which is frustrating because it's busy. Yeah. It's very busy. So I would say that's the biggest challenge, is trying to coordinate all the departments together. And I've got a strong understanding of computers, Microsoft, Excel, all that stuff, iPhones. I'm really handy with computers, can fix some apps, everything else like that, and just trying to get us all in the same. We don't have iPads or anything, so just trying to get us coordinated where we can all show up at the same time. You know, I've asked if we can get like an app, like a Robin Hood app or something where we can all like kind of communicate. I mean, outside of being on like a fire dispatch radio or something. But I'd say that's the biggest challenge. Yeah.
Communication, huh?
Communication,
Imagine that.
yes.
Glenn, do you have more questions?
I guess, why are we looking to leave the city of Chicopee and come to Granby?
Well, I'm interested in pursuing my self-education and bettering myself. So the next chronological step is a step up to commissioner. Obviously, it's a step in pay and it's a step in authority. And I think my experience and training demonstrates that I have a good understanding of it all. Back in 2014, I was on the planning board in Belchertown, and that's how things kind of like started for me with the government work. And I like it. You know, I like, call me crazy, but I like going to a zoning board of appeals meeting or, you know, planning board meeting and, you know, listening in, because it's interesting, you know. And I used to be on the flip side of that. You know, I had a non-conforming lot, and you're like, oh, why, you know, why can't this pass? Or what's the reasoning behind it? Well, now you know. You know, there's like a bunch of other things that go into play, not just because we don't like you. It's because these are the rules and regulations that the zoning laws that the town, you know, voted on. So I wish it were that easy. But another challenge will be the ADUs coming down the pike. So we'll see what happens.
What is your approach to dealing with difficult homeowners or contractors that you might be working with?
So again, I'm like a big teddy bear. I'm kind of easygoing. I try to de-escalate a situation, defuse the situation. You know, if something happens, you know, all you do is turn around. You don't get into a confrontation. You send them a letter. That way, it's documented. You know, it's not like you have a camera on, or they may have a camera on, but it's, you know, that way everything's documented. This is why, you know, you need a permit, or this is why we're giving you a cease and desist letter, or this is why you can't do this. And, you know, it happens all the time. You drive by and you see somebody putting a roof on a house on a Saturday morning, you know what I mean? And then you go into the office on Monday and, oh, they didn't have a permit. What do? You're not going to go there and knock on their door because they put a roof on their house on Saturday morning. You send them a letter. Hey, we noticed you put a roof on your house Saturday morning on such and such a date. You know, you do understand that you need a permit for this. And 9 times out of 10, they call you and say, oh yeah, I was going to pull a permit today. So.
Thank you.
And probably not examples, those are probably actually true stories too.
Yes.
And you did answer my question about zoning and such, because you said you were on the planning board for Belchertown?
Yes, in 2014.
Were you also on the ZBA?
No, but I do attend those meetings regularly.
Okay.
And additionally, with Chicopee, we do a lot of SPRAC reviews, you know, with a lot of influx of new businesses coming in, make sure, you know, everything works with the fire department and all the other departments, everybody's happy, so.
How familiar are you with infrastructure?
What kind of infrastructure?
Well, sewer lines, water lines.
I have a real good understanding of that. I mean, I know 202 is a state road. I know, you know, most of Granby, I think 100% of, if everything is septic, right?
Not 100%.
Well, not 100%? Okay, so very, very, very little, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that's the flip side of Chicopee, is everything's sewer except a 1% on Burnett Road. With the amount of houses that I've built, excavating foundations, attaching to water lines, sewer lines in the houses I built in Ludlow. I've got a good familiarity with it, good, curb cuts, gas lines, flowable fill, if you're near a conservation area, stuff like that. Yeah.
So on the flip side, how much familiarity do you have with septic systems and wells?
I live in Belchertown.
Okay.
One of the houses.
Other than using them.
One of the houses I built probably 5 years ago, it needed an elevated system, which I know Granby has a lot of, and I needed to put a liner in it. It was a foreclosure, and it was a non-conforming lot, and I had to go before all the boards, before the Board of Health, and get all the approvals. There's steps to follow, and you got to get everything approved.
Thank you.
Any questions?
No, I think I'm all set.
Thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I'd be proud to work for the town of Granby, and I hope you consider hiring me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
All right, so we do have some time before our next appointment. We have 15 minutes before these two would come in.
You have anything else, right?
No?
You want to just take a quick recess?
Yeah. Do you want to take a quick recess? Because we have 15 minutes before
Yeah.
the next gentleman comes in.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to take I'm sorry,
Go ahead, I'll go right in.
15-minute recess until the next,
Or until the next applicant
or until the
comes.
next applicant comes in.
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion?
No discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you. I will call the Select Board meeting back to order. It's 6:57 on February 13th. Thomas Quinlan, if you can come up here, sir. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are
How
you
are you?
doing?
Good, thank you.
So Tom, I know you were our acting building commissioner for a while.
Yes.
So I guess for the people at home, if you want to just give us an overview of you, a little background information.
Sure. Back when I was here, it was about, I think, a year and 3 months, and I co-shared it with Kevin Ross, the Northampton
Yes.
building commissioner, and, then he finally had filled the position. I was interested in then, and somehow our select board heard about it, and the day that I came here to meet, they offered me more money and stayed
Okay.
there.
It's funny how that happens sometimes,
I
huh?
have no idea how, but it was a tough situation.
Yeah.
All right, so you're still currently or presently at Town of Hadley?
Yes.
Okay, and why Granby?
Had an instance, how to put it, I had a kind of a political instance where, state inspectors would call anywhere I wanted to go now, they'd put a recommendation in, but I was forced to basically asked to do something, and I was correct. And now it's realized that between town council and all, I was correct, and they didn't want to do it that way, and now council and everybody's told them that, I was correct, I should have been allowed to do my job.
Okay.
And just was disappointed because I've worked, part-time even when I was, I won't say what community, one community I worked, started as a local commissioner, and the building commissioner had a problem with the mayor, and I was the in-between person, and actually was able to use them as a reference. And just disappointed that the town I grew up in, that happened. And, never, like I said, never had it happen in over 10, 11 years, even as a local inspector.
Dave Rickland, do you have any questions?
Well, one that I've asked everyone will. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You kind of made a point where, we've found it hard that we seem to be, building commissioners seem to move on and circulate to different towns and move on, and Sometimes, as you said yourself, you were kind of interested before, and then your town came back and offered you more money, and, you know, since I've been sitting on the board, you know, I've seen that kind of be a trend where it's almost like we're playing ourselves against other towns. So, you know, what's going to keep you in Granby if you had the opportunity to work here?
I was in Southampton. I actually wasn't, I was offered the job there and wasn't fully certified. I had to work under my East Hampton commissioner as a local. Was there for 6 years, finished my test, you know, that first year, whatever, and stayed there for 6 years. And then my town Hadley came, I went there and I've been there 5. Looking at the retirement and all, I need at least for 52%. I needed last year, I think, at least 12 years for 52%. And I thought I was going to stay there for 12 more years. You know, it'd be 11 now. And so didn't plan on till this came up.
Okay.
It's tough. I live right on Bay Road, so it's 12 minutes from here, but I'm a mile from Town Hall, from where I live in Hadley, and I grew up there. So.
And if you were to get the position, Tom, how early can you start? What would be your notice for them, I guess?
Yeah, I would love to give them at least 2 weeks' notice. My problem is Monday I'm going on a 10-day cruise, so I'll be gone from the 17th to the 27th.
Okay.
I know the process takes time and all, but I was hoping to be able to tell you the 3rd, but I don't like to leave anybody high and dry. In fact, when I was doing Southampton, I was doing West Hampton, and they had tried to merge the two to make up for what Hadley was paying. And, you know, they filled a position I helped stay on in Southampton. They filled a position, and Hadley wanted me to get rid of West Hampton, but I found 2, basically used my license, and I was the commissioner, and found 2 people who both got certified, and one finally took it over. But I wouldn't leave them high and dry like that. So, you know, like I said, for I think 3 years, they worked under mine to get their tests and all, and I took care of the zoning, any problems and that. But, so that, you know, I like to give them a longest I can.
It's understandable. How do you manage with communication with local government officials and other inspectors?
I feel very good. That's my strength, and I enjoy, you know, talking with people, learning. You learn every day. I feel very, very good between state inspectors, fire chiefs. Every community I've worked in, worked very close with all the fire chiefs, Board of Health, Planning Board, ZBA.
Have you ever served on any of those committees, Planning Board, ZBA, or?
Nope.
Just work with them?
Just work with
on
them.
the outside, okay.
And computer skills, IT skills?
My weakness, I'll be honest, but I've never had a problem, with it, but it's come pretty quickly after 10, 11 years.
What do you find one of your most challenging things as a building commissioner? Where you come across, whether it's been a unhappy customer, if you will, or just, working with, different people within the town? Outside the one you described.
I mean, I don't want to say it's a challenge, but it's, unfortunately, there's no state inspector that's the same. I mean, no building commissioner in the state that's the same. So like when I first started here filling in, there was a couple of contractors that were, wow, you're worse than the state police, and nothing to the prior commissioner. He just, maybe he didn't have the training on it, whatever, and but you're gonna have to do it. It's the code. I'm not doing, if I'm wrong, show me,
Yeah.
and you won't have to do it. But basically, like I said, it's not a challenge. And it became where they learned a lot from me. And I think they were friends, but, after being here a year, I had a, relationship where they wanted to be on the inspection when I did it, to get together and see if there was anything wrong or ask questions, whatever it be.
What would you consider the most challenging aspect of being a building inspector or commissioner?
I mean, the zoning is, but it's, I like that. I like a challenge. I like to be, the busier I am, the more efficient is the way I like to say it I am. But the zoning can be, but it's a challenge, but it's just something you take care of.
So you mentioned zoning. How familiar with zoning and working with zoning?
With probably, more than any, because we we're able to touch it. The sad part was working, both of us, at least there was two of us, filling in here, we weren't able to give 100%. And I always had to tell, Chris at the time that we're not giving 100%, which wasn't right, but at least the town was having some service. And being here, full-time, you can give that. And I'm very familiar, dealing with it here the little bit.
Yeah.
But definitely within, a few months, you're gonna know it very well.
Okay.
What are your means of staying current with all of the, excuse me, building codes and regulations?
I usually am at least double what is required for trainings. I go to the monthly and the UMass 3-day. Hadley's been very busy, so I still was double last 3-year period, but I think it was almost triple the amount of hours that were needed the prior 3-year term period, whatever it be.
In class and online?
Class, and
Yep.
I was able to do a lot more trainings, Ben, but I do have, Hadley does have a 20-hour local now, which
Okay.
frees me. Monday I was actually this week able to go to one that, something would always seem to come up that you couldn't make it to the last year or so there. I do, one other thing with that is, it's tough, and Hadley's to get the part-time planning, ZBA and all, but the first and third Tuesday of the month, we have a 1:30 Zoom, and normally we have 2 planning board members, police chief, fire chief, conservation, who else is on it? Assessor, assistant administrator, and sometimes it could be a half hour, sometimes an hour and a half, but we have a running sheet and go over any issues or anything in town. It's just for us, and then if there's anybody a new business coming to town that really wants to ask questions, that's better for me to let them ask the police chief or fire chief, whatever it be. We put them on right at 1:30. And it's tough to do, but we've worked it in. We've been doing it for 5 years, and it works really well. It's something I would, try if it would work here. But it gives them the opportunity and everybody to put what issues we have, so we can work on it as a team.
Right. Great.
So you're also a part-time building commissioner for the town of Sunderland, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So is that something you would continue?
Yes, I've been doing it, 10 years, 11 years now.
I notice a lot of these building commissioners have 2 other jobs, or another job, which kind of makes sense, because the smaller towns don't need a full-time building commissioner, so they have
Yes.
someone else, just makes sense.
And they've also given me somebody to do 4 hours of all the programs and that, as a secretary, whatever you want to call them there. So it made a big relief. And when any project like the last senior housing comes, it's going to be over the 12 to 15 hours. So we actually have the retired, we'd hire him as a alternate inspector to do all the last senior housing projects, so that they wouldn't have to come up with the extra hours that it stretched you out too much. So the last couple projects that's happened like that, the 150 apartments and the senior housing, it was sourced out, another inspector. So we know our limits.
So the hours here would not interfere with the time that you have to give Sunderland?
Oh, it's always after. And I didn't when I was here, but I'm assuming you'd have a phone, so it's the Sunderland's my personal phone, and the number here is the one he answered during hours. They have to wait. The message says after hours, you'll get to them.
Can you give us a little bit of background on your energy efficient and green building practices?
Everywhere I've been has been stretch code. Just keep up with it. I mean, I was it got brought up, and I was the one that had to present it to meeting, and I think every one of the, I mean, in Southampton, West Hampton, and Sunderland, actually, and Hadley, I was the one that had to, they were bringing it up, and I had to present it and talk about it back then.
If you've ever made a mistake during an inspection, calling something out wrong or being called out by a builder, how do you go about handling that?
You know, if there's a, I don't want to say confrontation, but if there's any questions, you know, I'll tell them if I'm wrong, you know, prove me wrong, I'm going to go back and look it up. So it's all, we learn every day. And if one thing, actually when I got Hadley, one good thing that was said when the administrator told, you know, as a reference there, was that they were never bothered with, you know, helping out as far as the, because if there is a problem that could arise, I'm going to let the administrator know right away. You know, this is my side. You might hear about it before you have to hear, and you'll hear both sides. But we're not perfect, and no hard feelings. So, you know, nothing. We just move on.
I don't have anything else.
No, but,
Can you just give us an example of a complex project that you've been involved in?
A lot of them. I'm trying to think of an example that was a, dealing with one right now where the person put a full good-sized foundation in without a permit, and they had, the contractor had the, it ends up being on a farm, and I didn't receive my information. The permit was put in November, didn't receive my information, I want to say the 3rd or 4th this month. And it was held up, not that I could hold it up, but I had never received the plans or any information till then, because it was held up from conservation. Luckily, they had an agricultural exemption for them, but they still had to cut the building in half. And the contractor had the farmer call to say that, asking for forgiveness and that, and said, I don't know what to say here, but it's not you, it's on the contractor. Contractors pulled his permit. It was issued the next day that I got the information. I reviewed it to move it along, because you have to move a lot of the agricultural as quick as you can, because they have a real short time limit for it, and it seems all the time the financing they're getting from the government's short time, and it's by right that foundation should come out. So that's what we're dealing with right now. It's double the fee. There's no question who it is. It's double the fee. They started without a permit, and I haven't heard back from the contractor, but it's through him now.
So it's kind of on hold right now?
Yes.
Cease and desist on it?
Yes, until the fee's paid, and
That's a tough one.
but disappointing, because we could have worked something out. You don't just call afterwards and say it was, they would have gotten it from the conservation though, if they had done it, but I couldn't hold the permit up for them as much as we worked together. But on the other hand, they didn't give me the information, my plans yet either. So, because it had to be cut in half, the project, square footage wise.
Too large. Thank you.
Every day there's something, and you say, geez, it can't get, it's just, it's interesting. It's a different challenge, especially with zoning.
Yep.
Was it?
I'm all set.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
thank you,
Very
Tom, appreciate it.
Yep, can I just ask,
Sure,
when are you
absolutely.
thinking, when are you, it's the worst time to be going away. It's a cruise and I can't cancel or anything. Is there any, do you guys have a time limit when you think you're going to be making a decision, or?
I know for myself, I would like some time to look at to mull through everything, because we've had 4 candidates today and you were one of the 4, so I think it's a lot of information at once, so I would like some time. Our next scheduled select board meeting is the 24th of February.
Oh, okay, good.
So that gives us some time to think about it, mull it over, and then deliberate on the 24th.
Okay, so I'm not hurting anything by being gone 'cause
No.
by then?
No,
Okay,
no.
We
perfect.
still
You'll be
tell
back
you.
in 3 days after our deliberation, so.
Well, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Enjoy your cruise, Tom.
Yes, enjoy your cruise. All right, so I do need time to mull it over and think about
No,
it,
I
so
agree.
Absolutely.
Yep, that's, I think we've had some good
candidates, yeah.
qualified candidates in front of us, absolutely.
So we don't have anything else on the agenda, and our next regularly scheduled meeting is the 24th, but you guys will be meeting next Thursday for the interview. And yes, thank you. One more thing, I do have an announcement to make to the board members. I will not be running again as the select board. My sons actually have asked me not to run, so they're getting older. My daughter's going into kindergarten, so I thank you for this time. I will be back when the kids are older, I'm sure. I do love this town, and I learned a lot over these last 3 years, and I feel like I'm in a good spot where I could continue, but it's just not what's best for my family at this time.
Well, family comes first. It's been a pleasure working with you. I'm
Thank you,
sorry to
Dave.
see you go.
Thank you.
She's not leaving today, David.
No.
No, I know.
Got till May.
Till May, but
Right?
it seems to fly by.
It does fly by, right?
It
I
does.
don't even feel like it's been 3 years, to be honest with you.
It goes by quick.
Yeah. So I just want to make that announcement, because I know there are other people who would like to run, so I don't want to hold them back.
Good. Not good, but, just, quickly, Crystal, and I know we'll get a chance to talk as it gets closer, but, it has been, enjoyed working with you.
Thank you.
For the past 3 years. So, as long as it wasn't anything I said that's making you leave. then
No,
okay.
no. It was definitely a hard decision to make,
Always is.
so. But other than that, that's all I have.
With that said, I will make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion?
No discussion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.